Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, happy Thursday, and welcome to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and disembodied voice, Justin, who is in my ear today, and thus not Justin from the grave, so no zombie Justin today, everybody. How are you all? Aha, poof, suddenly chat. I was like, I had nobody in chat up until a second. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. We're very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed here today. Which is weird because the AC wasn't working in our bedroom last night, so I thought I wasn't going to sleep well. But apparently I am, full of, bouncy today, so. Hello, Cooves. Hello, Carrie, Michael, and Dragon Iggy, and Casmania, and Jetta, and Tister, and Gergie. Morning, everybody. Or good afternoon to those of you who are over the pond, so to speak. Or actually, those of you who are on the East Coast. Not even over the pond, over the river. Over the river and through the woods, right? That old song from Christmas. Oh, and Christmas is approaching. I didn't even want to think of that. Wow. Why did I go there? We walked into a pharmacy. I had to buy my niece. I have to text my niece today. 1 second. Must write this down. My niece's birthday is today. She is, I want to say she's 17. Good Lord. They grow up so fast. I have to put text Lauren in capital letters on my page so I don't forget. I sent her a birthday card, but we went into the pharmacy to get the birthday card and a gift card, and there was Halloween stuff up. And David flipped. He was just like, "What? It's not even September!" And I'm like, "Honey, it's retail. 2 months in advance, sometimes 3. It depends how bored they are." So yeah. Oh yeah, 23. Wow. Does that make you feel old, Gergie? It would make me feel old if I had kids that were in their 20s. I guess it gets worse when you get older, right? I keep thinking about my mom and how old I am, and if she's just good Lord. I don't want to think about it. Anne's still in her 20s. Hey, Hero Monkey. Hello. Awesome, UK. I have a friend over there in the UK, actually. I have to touch base with her at some point. Find out how she is. An Overwatch friend. Somebody I met watching Overwatch. Twitch friendship, of all things. Yeah, Hobby Lobby has Griffin. Well, Hobby Lobby is a freaking, aberration of nature. Come on, let's just admit that out the gate, okay? As far as retail goes, Hobby Lobby takes it next level. Yeah, it's just, yeah, right. It's bad, Coops, right? It's bad. I used to work in retail for years during my college career. I worked in retail to get money on the side. And yeah, I got used to the retail seasons, which are, 3 months in advance of everybody else. Sometimes more, depending on if there are other holidays to exploit. Hey, Real GB, everybody. There we go. So more UK. Yay, good. We like seeing Europeans. I always kind of hoped that this show's timing would coincide a little bit with, the Europe crowd getting off work and, watching stuff while they're making dinner or something. So, yeah. Unless they're making, something high maintenance, obviously. If you're working on something high maintenance, you cannot watch Twitch while you are doing dinner. Or if you do, it is fraught with peril. For example, for me, it's scallops. Because once you commit to scallops, you must commit to scallops. And watching Twitch at the same time would be bad. Let us actually talk about painting. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'm very bouncy today and chatty, and we'll just sit here and go. And Justin will have to change the stream to just chatting. Maybe we should do it just chatting sometimes, sometime, Justin.
Sometimes when I do the AMA, I put it in that category.
Oh, that's cool. Awesome. Yeah, I was looking at Twitch categories this morning just because Twitch gamifies its thing so much. I'm brainstorming how to improve my Twitch game because I'm such a noob. Although David has actually stepped up and Planer also has offered to mod me, has become a mod on my Twitch channel, but my partner David has stepped up and become a manager on my Nightbot now and all this stuff. So it's really cool actually that he supports me like this. Things that consider yours are the retail stores start playing Christmas music in early November. Yes, way too early. Needs to be post-turkey. Definitely needs to be post-turkey. Painting? Is that what we do here? I don't know, Iffy. Something like that, right? Good morning, Shadow Raven. We're discussing why holidays are silly. Or at least why the retail industry's exploitation of holidays are silly. Let's get our da-da-da. Got my things. My thing there. So Juliana here thought we would do some plant life and maybe block in her apron. Wow, I just like totally get out of focus there. Let's go. There we are. That's much better. She needs a plinth. Where is my... Ah, I see. Alethea took it over. Well, we're going to kick that girl to the curb and grab our plinth back. Although I may have tiny plinth around here. Oh, I guess I do have tiny plinth. All right, Alethea. You get a bye today. We're not going to kick you off the Red Bull thing. We're just going to stick Juliana onto the little block. Because Juliana is tiny enough that she can fit on the little block. I probably should paint her base black at this point just to kind of get a sense of light and dark on the model. Right now there's no real big darks, although the brown comes close to that. But once you add that black, that if you do a black rim on your bases like I do, that tends to offset everything. And it gives us a little bit of like both pure white and pure black on the model with the highlights on the NMM and all the rest of it. So let's see here. Talk diets and different... Yeah, I'm restarting keto on Monday. I had been really solid and just being like 10 pounds up from the lowest weight I was at when I was previously on keto. And 10 pounds up is fine as long as I stick there. But then I noticed I'd crept up by 3 pounds and I'm like, "Rrr." So it's back on keto for probably a month or two just to see. If I do well on it, I may stay on it longer. I was on it 2 years previously. It worked very well for me. It's not for everybody. And it definitely is a diet, I think, that you've got to have a plan. You've got to do some reading on it because there's some stuff. It's easy to do the keto diet very wrong and be very bad for you. So if you ever think about it, look into it. Pick up a book called The New Atkins Diet, I think is the one that I used, and they were very helpful. Ooh, it looks like our chat had a burble there. Yeah, if there was ever a year that needed Christmas all year long, it's 2020, yes. Agreed, D. Clearman, agreed. Although kind of we're if you count having to mail order everything, it's like every Amazon package is a Christmas present. We've all been doing a lot of Amazon, I bet, since the quarantine. Alrighty, I'm just going to mock in that base so I can get a sense of like real lights and darks in the mini. Yeah, I went off. I wanted to be able to cook things for both David and I, Liquid Nebula, and so I went low carb instead. For a while I was Mediterranean, but I actually didn't like that very much, and it didn't really work for me. So like I had gained that 10 pounds on Mediterranean, and so I just decided to just go low carb and do a lot of vegetables. A lot more veggies than I had been doing before, just really concentrate on it. And lower my protein a bit. In general, my health scores as far as my annual physical went were like better than I've ever had on keto. That was why my diet, and my doctor may have been initially dubious about the keto until she like looked at my stats and went, "Oh my god." And then she's like, "You should stay on this diet. It's working for you." The biggest thing is the sodium, potassium, the fact that it's a diuretic diet, and the fact that you have to have extra salt, which is so weird, and you usually want to up your potassium commensurately. So that can be difficult. Alright, so we're just going to block this in. I'm using pretty thick paint. I usually do thin it a little for this, though, because I want it to go on in a nice even layer. So if you use too thick paint when you're doing the edge of bases, it can just leave brush strokes and be kind of unsightly. So we'll put it on there, kind of set her down, let that dry a little bit while we're mixing our greens. Amazon and Reaper, all your quarantine packages. Yeah, that's actually what I'm doing right now in our Stephen Gundry diet, kind of, but without quite as much like crazy. So I'm like eating vegetarian until dinner, and then at dinner I eat just a very small portion of whatever meat we're doing, so like 3-4 ounces tops. So definitely, like, I don't have any meat for breakfast. I don't have any meat for lunch. And I gotta say, I feel pretty good on this diet. And, like, when you've got intestinal issues like I do, you know, you always kind of keep a eye on things when you switch things up. But it seems to be working really, really well. So when I go keto, I'm actually going to keep all those vegetables in my diet. I'm going to actually keep still low protein. which should be interesting. Kiri, can you settle? I know David is doing things. I know. It could be Kiri emergency today, guys, depending. What? What are you doing? Come on, settle down. I even have the AC on for you, dog. I know. You hear David out there and you want to go investigate. Yeah, you got spoiled yesterday when the door was open all day. Settle down, please. The doglet is definitely being silly today. Go ahead. Settle. You don't have to sit and sniff your blanket. I did not drop a treat there. There are no particles. Just so silly. All right. So we got to think about our greens. What are you doing, dog? No. Doesn't matter that he's out there. Settle, Kier. So I like this olivey green that we laid down. I think that's actually thinned down troll flesh or troll hide, whatever it's called, from bones. I had originally thought about going a bit brighter with these guys. And so I'm kind of like going back and forth. Like this does harmonize with the other colors, although it's a bit more muted than some of them. But I go back and forth. Let's grab the troll hide, and then let's grab what I usually use and see if we can kind of come... Maybe I'll base coat with the other color I tend to use and see how that goes. Let's see, where's my troll hide? There it is. $94.55. It's kind of a swampy color, but I might use it as a base and go up from it. There we go. Bones colors. And then my other colors that I like to use lately. Let me see if I can find my Ancient Oak. There we go. Ancient Oak and Naga Green. And let's go up with NMM Gold Highlight, because NMM Gold Highlight is useful for everything. Oh, what do we got? Oh, vegan was your best health score by a long shot? Yeah. Yeah, I've got a friend who's actually on carnivore and doing well on it, which is so weird. But she has a lot of inflammation markers. Like she's only in her 30s and she's got arthritis. Is bad. So carnivore I just don't know how anybody can survive on that, but she's doing well on it. So she's trying to introduce more vegetables now, but it's making her hands swell. So everybody's so different, right? You got to just check around. Like I've tried so many diets over the years to see what I really did well on. And once I got my health problems, I had to really watch it and see what I honestly whole body was doing well on. So, I mean, try things, but do educate yourself about these things. You know, there's so much misinformation on the internet. Try to find a good book. All the decent diets have decent books written on them and why they work. So, yes. Oh yeah, I've actually tried to cut down on my stress eating as well. It helps a lot that the Patreon is doing well, my Twitch is doing well, you know, my commissions are doing well. Like I feel like I'm like lower stress right now, although I have a lot to get done by the end of the month. But yeah, I'm a stress eater too, so I feel it totally. Yeah, exactly, right? Liquid nebula. See, that's what I found too, because I was getting a lot of gas and heartburn too, and then when I went keto, it went away. Like, and to me, and my skin like got really good. So to me, it was like, well, how can you say anything against this diet? Because it like fixes my issues that I shouldn't have. So obviously, there's something good about keto, right? So it doesn't work for everybody, but it definitely works for some people. Yeah, no joke, right? Image. They always want to sell you on their thing, and why it's better. So we've got a couple options here. So we'll look at them both. So troll hide is what we kind of have in kind of a thin layer on the base. I think I had it as a wash, and I just decided to kind of go with it and see how it looked. Ancient Oak is a lot more gray and a lot more blue. You can see how much blue is in Ancient Oak just from looking at these guys next to each other. Now, troll hide is very yellow. And then what I usually do is I take Ancient Oak and I actually highlight it by mixing in Naga Green, and you could get some beautiful greens that way. But in looking at this, I already have blue on this model, and Ancient Oak might be just too close to blue for it. It could be that this yellow-green is looking so good because it's picking up against the purple there. And if I went with Ancient Oak, it might not be nearly as good. So what we can do, since it's just a base at this point, I haven't painted the plants yet, we can put some Ancient Oak on the back side of this and see if we like it. Yeah, exactly, right? Your skin, yeah. When I go high carb, my skin is just bad. Like, and I normally have pretty good skin, but on keto I have amazing skin. And it makes you look younger, you know, you always like if you're like me and you've got the gray hairs coming in. Young people don't have these problems. Is it like first world problems, like old people problems? I don't know. So I'm going to put some, about 3 or 4 drops of ancient oak in. I'm actually going to add a drop of my naga in to see if I can get a bit more vibrancy out of my ancient oak and make it work well with everything. So it's about a 4-to-1 ancient oak and naga green. And I'll mix that up. What this will do is it'll shift ancient oak a little bit away from blue. It'll add some warmth and it'll add some saturation. So utilizing these 2 colors this way by mixing the ancient oak and the naga green can be a really give you a really interesting strategy, because you can make it keep it as bright or as muted as you want. All right, so let's actually rinse out our brush and reapply. And we don't have all of the colors on the front of the model on the back of the model, but oh, nice, Valendar. Wisdom and sophistication, right? Or at least we haven't been around the block. Oh yeah, we got sub 10 months. Very nice. Sweet, Valendar. Yeah, green is my weirdest color. Like I look at my like blues and greens actually. So look at my drawer here and I'm like, I've got probably 10 or 12 different reds and maybe got 4 greens. I definitely have a really unbalanced paint selection right now. Ah, Idolin, I have not seen you before. Welcome. Alrighty. Let's see here. What you got in Kiri? Kiri, you do not need to go out and get David's food. Is it that he's eating and you're in here? Probably. David's breakfast wasn't ready quite on time with the rest of us. So this makes, as you can see, a nice soft green. This is, again, about 4 drops of ancient oak to 1 drop of the naga green. Which, initially looking at them, you would never think that they would go together or mix well, but they do. So by adding in that naga, I've brightened up the oak a little bit. Taken just a little less blue, but it's still pretty blue. So just looking at it, it's not nearly as nice as that green is there. So to me that says, I could bring this up yellow, but why wouldn't I just swap over and do Troll Hide and maybe highlight it just by adding in a yellow? And I'd get a nice natural mossy green like I've got there on the front. So yeah, I'm going to decide right away, without even highlighting, I'm going to decide this does not look as good. Y'all can see, right, that this just isn't as nice a counterpoint. Like this yellowy warmth is good. It picks up the yellow in the hair. And when you go back here, it looks a little more dull. So you got to kind of tune your eye to kind of make these observations. And it helps if you do this kind of a front and back look. So you can, or even put swatches next to each other so you can directly compare. Usually, if you kind of just relax and kind of follow your gut, you can develop a feel for what looks good and what doesn't. So I'm going to say the Troll Hide is definitely the way I want to go. And I might even drop some water onto this because it hasn't dried yet. Thin it down. Slurp it off. Slurp, slurp. Slurp, slurp, slurp. That way I don't have to wait for that paint to dry. I can slurp water off it and it'll dry a lot faster and then I can lay it down. Slurp, slurp, slurp. Because thicker paint takes longer to dry. Yeah, and alright, it really is a nice, warm, mossy color, isn't it? It's a nice green for when you don't want a real bright green. But you still want something saturated. Here we go, we've slurped it off. 1 second, I have a sneeze coming on. There is still a bit of dust in the air out here and smoke. Dear me, gesundheit to me. Okay. Alright, Troll Hide, Troll Hide. Oh no, a big drop of water from all of the splooshing I just did. Thank you, Cass. Salud. Yes. I like gesundheit. I grew up with Gesundheit. Alrighty. I'm going to thin down this troll flesh just a little bit. Godzilla. Who was my idol when I was growing up? I loved Godzilla. When I was a little kid, I adored Godzilla. I liked Godzilla better than any of the Sesame Street or other characters out there. I would watch old monster movies, old Japanese monster movies on Sunday. They usually had them on some channel. And I would totally be all over those. Troll flesh and pro paint troll flesh. Actually, I would say I did put out the troll color in HD in Ara, but I don't think that we brought it back. It was stained olive. That was actually an equivalent for the old pro paint troll flesh. At least it used the same formula. You know, when you change bases, you can't ever get it quite perfect, but it was close. There's a way to mix it, I'm sure, if I thought about the formula for long enough. It's got a lot of brown in it. Or red oxide. It makes that color made a great base for bronze too. Like great base for bronze because it was a little bit greenish, but it was a lot of brown. And so it was really, really good for bronze because you want that greenish undertone. Hey, Traumahawk, thanks for the sub. Thanks for the resub. This mini is adorable. Yes, Motor City Ray, I agree. Also, I want to thank all of you guys who came out for my stream yesterday and made it really awesome. Like, with all the gifted subs and all the bits. We hit a level 5 hype train yesterday, Justin, on my stream. We maxed it out. Which was just fantastic. You guys encouraging me on the Twitch makes me want to Twitch more. More streams. Actually, it's kind of my my end of the month goal here is once I finish my Patreon content is to sit down and see, kind of analyze my various income streams and talk about, you know, figure out what I need to do to expand and grow in each of my various things. The longer I'm out here and the longer I'm freelancing, the better things come together. And if you guys ever want, I know some of you are trying to, like, you know, launch like artist pages or maybe, you know, try to get more of a name on your social media for painting and things like that. If you ever want me to talk about the business aspects of freelancing as a mini painter and, you know, where my income streams come from and what percentage of everything is, you know, the horrible taxes that you have to pay that make your heart just kind of break. But if you ever want me to talk about the business side, I'm willing to do that. Ah, you want me to Twitch more? Yes, okay. Yeah, because it's really, I mean, and you may read this if you look at freelancing, if you've ever considered freelancing or trying to make it as a miniature painter. You may come across the fact that they all tell you to have multiple income streams, and that is 100% right. So, like, for me, I have a small income stream from Reaper for doing these Twitch things. And the nice thing about that is that Reaper is, you know, Reaper's just been a help, like, right. When it's nice to still be part of the Reaper family. And so I got that from Reaper. The majority of my stuff is Patreon, of course, which is the way I really had planned it. Oh, taxes. Well, you're going to take that 20% cut of everything off the top. No deductions, no nothing. You make the money, you lose 20% to the self-employment tax. So right away, you're dropping 20%. And then you add in state and federal taxes, if as applicable in your state. Obviously, if you're in Texas, like I was, you don't have state income tax, and you never get happier about that than you do when you go self-employed. Now, of course, I'm in California, where the state income tax is like 8 or 9% or something like that. I'm just calling it a flat 10 in my head. And then, of course, you've got federal income tax. So you expect to lose between 40 and 50% of your income flat out as a freelancer. Makes that $1,300 a month on Patreon look a lot littler, doesn't it? Now, of course, No state income tax in Texas. You don't have any trouble if you live in Texas. Texas just does not do state income tax. They make their money via tollways and things like that. And other things. Property taxes, I'm sure. Yep. Yeah, it makes it nice. I mean, but I definitely wanted to live out here. David was not moving to Texas, so I'm just going to have to suck up that tax. Now, with the federal taxes, of course, you have an individual deduction, you know, so your first 12,000 whatever you don't owe tax on, which is very nice because that kind of cuts up, you know, you end up not being too bad then, because that if you kind of calculate it all together, then you aren't losing that much on everything. I don't know what the state did. I'm not familiar with California state taxes, so I have no idea what the deduction is there, if there is one. But yeah, so you can kind of like get a little bit of relief there. But you are going to lose a lot to taxes, so you got to kind of figure that out. That's why the Reaper check that I get is so nice, because Washington State. Well, there's a good reason for me to encourage David to move back home. He's from Seattle area. But yeah, so you are going to lose a lot of money of that, and you've got to figure it out. You've got to like put aside that money every month so that you can pay your quarterly taxes. So that is the biggest pain about being self-employed. Everything else, I think, is like, you know, it takes some dedication. It takes some focus. Let's go. I've got my troll. I'm going to see what the highlights look like. I'm going to do like a 3 parts troll hide, 1 part NMM gold highlight. I'm going to see what that looks like. There for everywhere, Coos. What it does is it pays your Medicare and Social Security. So federally, at the federal level, there is a specific tax for self-employment. Any money that you make that is not through a normal job, that you know, it counts as you should be paying self-employment tax on it, which is a flat 20%. Technically, it ends up being just a tiny bit less. Like they deduct something. But yeah, you just don't even quibble about it. I used to call it the bend over tax. It's like it punishes you for being self-employed, because, you know, like it's not like Reaper pays that much taxes on my Medicare and Social Security. Like they don't pay 20% of my paycheck into there. But when you're self-employed, the government expects you to pay it. Hey, Nomad Zeke. Yeah, tax normally is part of. See, that's nice, Coobs. But down here. Yeah. I'm sure, Valandar, but the problem is then it ends up punishing the American dream, right? It ends up punishing you when you want to go into business for yourself. And that may not have been the original intended purpose, but then they needed to make that distinction, right? Taxes are crazy. Yes?
I call all tax bend over tax.
There you are.
I don't like taxes in any way.
Yeah, I mean,
personally.
The funny thing is that David and I think I mentioned this, we were listening to Econ Summer School on NPR, and they did a episode on the income tax and how it actually didn't exist, like, until a certain point in history. Like, the government was very resistant to taxing everybody's income until a certain point. And the reason, I think, was the First World War, where they desperately needed to raise money for the war effort, and that then suddenly it became palatable, and it's stuck around ever since. But yeah, if you haven't checked out Planet Money on NPR, their podcast, they're doing Econ Summer School every Wednesday, and the first several episodes are just like great eye-opening, you know, economics, like really fun, like how economics actually impacts your everyday life, even if you don't realize it. It's been a great series. I think they've got just like, it might be at the end of it now, or it might have one more week. But the income tax episode is really interesting because it was just like, they did a couple things on taxes. Like they did an episode on tariffs and how they work also. And how complicated it's all gotten. Hey, I mentioned math and Mathophile shows up. Go figure. Sole purpose is to take what should be simple tax concepts and make them as complicated as possible. Actually, that's true. Many people have said that, Coos, that the tax code is complicated specifically to make people, you know, have to hire somebody else to do their taxes. Yeah, we like Planet Money a lot, Carly Hamster. Yeah, First or Second World War, that's the same Shadow Raven, exactly, because it's all great until you need to raise a crap ton of money for the war effort, and you have no recourse as a government to do so, and then you're like, well, what can we do? We can tax income. I'm going to just do a little bit of a brush over the top. This is a 4-to-1. It didn't change the color very much because Trollhide's really strong and highly pigmented. So you can see though the transparency difference. Like note this, guys, because remember, NMM Gold Highlight has a bit of white in it. You can see because it's pale. But see, you can see how the transparency changes here. See how transparent this is and vibrant. And then when you add white, even when you're adding white as part of a different color, see how opaque it goes. Like you can kind of see through it a little bit here, but then when you get to here and you look at how it's falling off the side of the palette, you can't see through it at all. So that's how your opacity changes, and also your vibrancy of color, right? We're losing a little bit of vibrancy in the name of opacity. So a little bit of our transparency we lose in the name of coverage. Makes sense, right? Sure, Ballandar, have fun. We'll see you later. We need Dave to explain all the taxes, yeah. Yeah, Dave does my taxes, so I'm sure he's gonna, like, look at me and roll his eyes to heaven this year. Oh, the one thing you can do... Oh, go ahead, Justin.
Well, I was going to say, because you had said earlier that as far as small businesses, I actually thought... Now, I'm no expert, so please, if anyone in chat knows, I actually thought small businesses had to match all the taxes you paid and pay them basically to the same agency.
Maybe small
IRS
businesses, but not self-employed.
No, I mean, like, so if you were self-employed, I believe, right, so you're paying the percentage, and then when you're a small business paying an employee, any of the taxes that the employee pays, I believe they pay as well.
Yeah, so it doubles it up.
It basically doubles it up, but, I mean, I thought Dave said that to me, like, years ago at this point.
Oh, okay. Yeah, taxes are complicated, but... Yeah, and taxes are somewhat complicated as a self-employed person, but I mean, you always can get TurboTax. It's not, it'll break your brain, like, and I've got a pretty good brain, you know, and math, although math was like my least good subject, but I was still got B's in it, you know, B's and sometimes an A. So it's not like I sucked at math, but I read the taxes, and it's just so, the problem with it is that it's always referring you to another form. Like, that's why taxes are complicated. Like, I can follow the instruction form on any tax form. I did my own taxes for years and years until I started at Reaper, and, you know, Dave doing your taxes is one of the perks. Then I just got lazy. Let Dave do my taxes. But then when you're self-employed, they're like, you know, enter this per form you haven't even looked at, right? And then, well, enter this, you can find this on blah form, blah, 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 you know, and then that form refers you to yet another form. And so that's where it gets brain-breaking. Make it LLC. No, I'm self-employed. I am self-employed methophile. I have no interest in going the LLC route. I do not want any additional anything. I just want me. Just me. I have no intention of ever having any employees. I'm not looking to create a painting studio. I like it just being me, and I've got an Ein, but...
Well, you could make an LLC and then keep it to only you.
Yeah, but then I don't think I can have... Like, I have a solo 401k, and that would have to change, I think.
Oh gosh, I don't know that part.
Yeah, see,
the retirement aspect.
I have no interest in doing any incorporated thing whatsoever. I know where I am on the self-employed side, and I like to stay there. I don't have I don't want to make things even more complicated, because for me it will be more complicated, because I understand what I'm doing as a sole proprietor for the most part. But when you introduce that LLC, then I don't know, and so that's like, it just is a whole other keg of worms. I glanced at it, but then I pretty much said no way.
I think that my photography business I turned into an LLC, but I haven't had much time to do anything with it since you left, actually.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. I mean, I could look at it, but it would have to make a lot of sense. I mean, I suppose if it gets you out of the self-employment taxes, but then there's bound to be other paperwork that needs to be done and other stuff that needs to be worried about. Right now, at least, I know what I'm worried about, and I know what I need to do. So,
Yeah, that's why I went to LLC actually. Road Dog is I was advised to do so, not by Dave actually, but someone else for lawsuit protection because they
Yeah,
sue the company, not you.
right. And that makes no sense for me. Like, there's no reason whatsoever that I need to do that that I can see.
I couldn't imagine anyone suing you over a paint job. Could you imagine that?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure
Like,
there is a world, there is that person, but the thing is, that's why you vet as me. I vet my commission people. I have dealt with crazy commission people back in the day, and so I kind of have this list of red flags when you're communicating with them that pop up. So, and I take so few commissions. So, really, it's just the Patreon, my Reaper work, my Twitch. Nobody's going to sue me over Twitch. Nobody's going to sue me over the Patreon because I deliver every month and I'm never, when I'm late, I'm one day late on one thing. So, it's like, I can't see a reason I would ever need to be an LLC and make things more complicated that way.
on another note, by the way, I think I said this before. The
Yeah.
highlights on the top of her head are insane.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that
I
those turned
love
out
those
really well.
highlights.
Yeah, they turned out really well. So now I did mixture, guys. This is what happens then when you add even more of your NMM Gold Highlight. And the reason, by the way, that I like to use NMM Gold Highlight for this is there are times when you're mixing highlights for greens where you want to add like a little bit of yellow to warm things up and to suggest sunlight on the leaves, but you also want to add a little white because you want to lighten the color, right? So that's why I tend to reach for NMM Gold Highlight, because it has the yellow and the white together, and it's a really nice kind of neutral mix. It's got 3 different yellow pigments in it. I did a whole PDF on NMM Gold Highlight and why it rocks back in the early days of my Patreon. I think it actually may be like one of the first posts at the $5 level in December 2018. If not, it's January. But I love this color and it's so versatile. And so here I am mixing up this. Now, if I decide I want a warmer green or a brighter green, or if I decide this is too olive and I need it more grassy, that's when the Naga maybe comes in. So I could drop a drop of Naga. And I'm using more or less like a 4-to-1 mixtures here. So it's 4-to-1 Troll to NMM Gold, or it's 4 drops of NMM Gold and 1 drop of Troll. So this is very olivey, and it doesn't look much like grass to me. It looks like moss or lichen, which she might be kneeling down on, because it doesn't have a grass texture right now. It's a broccoli base. It's the new sort of digitally generated broccoli base. Oh, good. Nice to hear it, player. So I'm going to drop a drop of the Naga into each of these to see if I can slide it a little bit away from olive. And you see how bright that green is and how weird it looks, right? But because it is so saturated, it will shift the color, see, more toward a grassy green. Even 1 drop of it will. So that's kind of nice. And then we'll go over here and mix it in. And I'll make it a lot more a spring green. It'll take the yellow down a bit, because of course it's very vibrantly green. But that looks more grassy now to me. This is more of a natural green, and it's a really good leaf green. So the go to olive, and they tend to look more like lichens, mosses, things like that. But just add a little bit of, and Naga is so saturated, it has so much pigment that Naga's a good one for this. That's why this is pretty much the bright medium green I keep in my toolbox. That's it. And maybe that's why I have so few greens. It's not that I don't like green, but it's that I know I can mix so many different greens from the greens that I have. So, like, I've got Ancient Oak, I've got Naga, I've got the Troll Flesh, and then I've got Dungeon Slime, because everybody loves Dungeon Slime. And I've got a couple of the weird Pathfinder greens, and, like, Dragon Green, and Peacock. So, Peacock and Tianzi are more like a teal almost, but... Alright, let's just get in this. With these guys, I mean, you could stipple texture down on this base, or you could just, like, do a side brushing. Like, I'm just gonna unload my brush and see if I can just drag it across the surface. And if I use a little dabbing brush stroke, where I'm almost stippling as it is, it'll not only side brush, where the texture isn't going down into, but you could do it a lot faster. Like, if you were trying to actually stipple and hit the edges of all these little indentations in the base, it would take you a while. But if you're using the side of your brush and you're dabbing, you can just go a little bit faster, and you're still not going to get anything down in those crevices. You're still going to keep your paint on top, but you're going to pick up your highlights. So I like side brushing better than dry brushing. You could dry brush this base. It does have enough texture, but it would give you a scratchy texture also. And you may not want that. And of course you can be a lot more precise because you still can use the tip of your brush where you want to. You just don't want to put the tip down inside these little pockets. So that's bringing up that texture pretty well. This is the natural base. I'm just working with the straight up base for once on here. And I may suggest, when I go on, I may suggest a little bit like that this is more of a crushed down turf. And maybe I'll put some grass on it. But I don't know. I mean, it's sculpted to be like this. So maybe this is one base I won't mess with. I've been doing a lot of green stuffing on bases lately. So sometimes you just want to paint something with its integral base and just go for it. And it's worth just showing people how to deal with this sort of base. It's not a bad base as far as the texture goes. It's not distracting. You know, it sets off the figure. You've got your nice little flower there. You could put a little bit of longer grass here and there. So kind of suggest this is like pressed down turf. And you've got some strands of grass coming up. You could do that. But then the problem is that once you build up some static grass or turf or stuff, then if you add that, you're going to bury these little hedgehogs, right? And you're going to bury that little flower. So that's why I'm thinking that of all the bases that I might just keep the regular texture on, this is the one. There we go. Now she's in focus. Yeah, the hedgehogs are adorable, right? So you don't want to bury the little hedgehogs. So keeping this base makes sense. I'm going to grab a little bit. And I went straight up to my highlight green color instead of doing this intermediate green because it wasn't very different. If you have too much paint on your brush, you're going to see it like glob off and fill in detail like it did there. So best to, when you're doing side brushing, you don't take as much paint off as when you're dry brushing. You just want to take it off till you don't have pooling on it at all. Like, you know, you can see the paint on there, but it's not like a big puddle on the end of the brush. And you start with the side, and you're very gentle at the beginning, because you will still have more paint on your brush as you begin. But after a few strokes where you've gotten off any excess, very gently, you can continue to go and hit the sides of things. And then if you really want to fancy this up, you can come back after you've done all of this and just use a very precise stroke and highlight very specific features of this to make it look more tight and less just side brushed, if that's what you want. And if I decide that this the difference between these highlights and the base itself, the base color is too much, then I can add a wash. This is one area where I would use a wash. I use them very seldom, as you know. But if you're doing this kind of stippled side brushing, and especially if you've done actual dry brushing on this sort of thing, putting a wash over it essentially is like a glaze. It reduces your brush strokes and texture. Yeah, strange. Yeah, you only like really get to see that they're little hedgehogs. Like I noticed them, and then I wasn't sure what they were, and then I noticed they had little tiny eyeballs and that they had little spikes, and I was like, hedgehogs. It's pretty adorable, actually. But yes, you just have pink hedgehogs, Fifi. I mean, there's nothing wrong with pink hedgehogs. Some magical forest somewhere has pink hedgehogs. I'm certain of it. And if it didn't, it now does because we've mentioned it on the internet. But yeah, so to get back to the whole being a self-employed mini painter thing, it's like I get, you know, a chunk. I actually broke down the other day, and this is very useful if you do decide to start kind of getting some money from self-employment. But break down exactly where your money is coming from and what percentage of your money is coming from where. And once you have like your highest percentage things, then those are the things you concentrate on for growth, assuming that you enjoy them and that they aren't making like a disproportionate, like at first something that makes 20% of your income could look good until you look at it and realize that it takes actually a lot more work than some of the other things. So you got to balance out your work-life balance. And if you're working really hard trying to make something succeed because it's 20% of your income, but then you realize it's sucking up 50% of your time, that's not a good trade. So for me, it's like Reaper is nice because Reaper deducts taxes, so I don't have to worry about that. It's not self-employment money. It'll be actual employment money. So it's nice to have a side gig. I found this out actually the first time that I freelanced. I also worked part-time for Games Workshop, which was nice because employee discount. Coupon for product. Hey there, Planner. Yeah, you can paint these anywhere. Either way. Yeah, it's Stripe Lady. Collins is always summoned by the stripes. Collins loves stripes. But yeah, so you always want to like look at what your major income's coming from, how much effort it takes you to do, if it's disproportionate to the amount of money it makes, one way or another. You know, how much do you enjoy it? Does it stress you out? You know, if self-employment stresses you out, it's probably not for you. Like, and I don't mean like, you know, a little bit of stress. It's going to cause you a little bit of stress because you're the only one who can make the income, right? You can't depend on anybody else. If you don't do the work, you will not get a paycheck. So there is a certain amount of stress in that, but in general, it's much less than some of the other stress I've had working for people. Not for Reaper necessarily, but like I remember my credit bureau job and oh my God. When I think back to corporate America, I'm currently in utopia. They're fairy hedgehogs that pretend to be thistles. Yes, Iffy. Oh, wow. Yeah, and so if you don't use a campus at all, yeah, Mathophile. They're very bad at making... They're very bad about making blanket rules and not really, like, thinking about, you know, exceptions. They just want to make a blanket rule and forget about it, right? Oh, yeah. Working for Games Workshop was okay because it was part-time. It was very funny back in those days. Funny, haha, not very funny. To be like one of only like two women, maybe three. And they only, well, at least in the upper offices, in accounting, almost the whole department was women on the American side, which was very funny. So you have this huge disparity at Games Workshop over, they didn't like to hire women for their like game store or any of their like public, except for their like receptionist. And I did get told flat out that most GW retail stores would not hire me because I was female. And they considered women disruptive, which was, you know, that was my bad part of working at Games Workshop, was the sexism. Absolutely there. Never listen to anybody who tells you that they weren't. Now, nowadays, it's a bit different. And, you know, there's a bit, definitely a bit more evolved mindset, I would think. But I have no proof of how much things have improved as I no longer work for them. That's something I never ever saw at Reaper, by the way. Reaper has always been very equitable, and as the time has gone on, I think we've employed more women rather than less. But otherwise, working for Games Workshop was fun but stressful, and it depended on where I was. Like when I was in my office job at HQ, it was actually really, really low stress. It was great, and then you get your coupon for product, i.e., your paycheck, and you got a huge discount, so it was fantastic. But working for their retail arm is a lot more stressful because they put you under stress to sell, which I dealt with, and I'm good at selling when I like the product. So, but I was pretty relieved to get offered the job at Reaper because I was still working at GW. I actually got to look at my cell manager, who was kind of a jerk to me, and tell him that I was leaving for a different miniatures company who was going to give me a much cooler job doing staff painting. That was one of my favorite moments. And the sad thing about Games Workshop, okay, back in those days, and they're much better now. They're much, much better now. I talked a lot to my local store manager down in Denton when I was there. But back in those days, they really wanted you to be a jerk. Like, if you were a manager, you were expected to be a jerk to your employees, to put more pressure on them to sell. You were never, ever, ever supposed to be anything other than that guy. And I really kind of felt bad for my cell or regional. I can't remember. I think he was my regional manager. Because he was actually, you could tell he was actually a really good guy, but he was forced to put on that face by the company. And so I just feel like that was just a distasteful thing about Games Workshop retail. But it's so much better now. I mean, a lot of the times their new stores are run by only one person. They've cut down a lot on their manpower. And store managers now have a lot more autonomy. And they still have to sell. They still have to make sales totals. But they're a lot more about not being the jerk, which I really appreciate. I think otherwise it makes a toxic culture. And although that may have gotten them results, putting people under a lot of pressure, it also caused a lot of rollover. Like, I believe, in fact, that when I ran into that cell manager at a Golden Demon, I think, or somebody who knew him, and I asked how he was. And they said that he'd quit Games Workshop because, quote unquote, he was sick of being a jerk. So that was how GW was back in the early 2000s when I worked for them. Reaper is so much better than that. But Games Workshop now is so much better than that, too. They've made a lot of strides in not being that company. New leadership, new philosophy. It's all good. So I don't mind spending money on GW these days. Yeah, right? It does. And that was the other thing is they would tell you is don't pay attention to your regular customers. Instead, concentrate on the kid with the grandma who's going to spend $400 more. That was their retail strategy. And really your regular customers, if you really encourage them, will get multiple armies and end up spending far more than that one-time granny buying a Christmas present for her kid, for her nephew or whatever, or grandchild. So it just seemed very, very weird back in those days. Very weird. Like I said, much better now, from what I hear from GW employees that I know or have known.
I actually think that's the standard model now, from what I can tell. Aside from like really big stores,
Yeah.
like the local GW stores, like the one in off the loop there.
Yeah, in Denton,
you know that one?
Yeah, Brett.
Yeah, that.
Yep.
Brett. Yeah, You know what? Brett is so cool.
He is so cool. Yeah.
He is. He is actually one of the reasons I got into Kill Team besides Collins.
Mm-hmm.
Super nice guy, but I believe it's just him there.
Yeah, he has an alternate. I think he has one alternate for if he's sick or he needs an extra person on release days or something like that. Like, I know that he has a backup, or had
right.
in the past,
I think he's from
right?
Another store though.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That makes sense. In a way.
But yeah. But so basically, the sole responsibility of the store under normal circumstances are up to him to manage. I believe.
Right.
But I mean, Brett does a fantastic job. I mean, he's an example of where that works out.
Yes, absolutely. He does a fantastic job, and he knows that encouraging his regulars is important, along with cultivating new customers, and they give him the autonomy to do that, which they never did in the old days. You always had somebody breathing down your neck at GW back in the aughts. Back in the early 2000s, it was very much you always had your cell manager was breathing down your neck, or your regional manager was breathing down your neck, or your manager was breathing down your neck, or it was like you always had that chain of command that was just made to pretty much put pressure on you. And now they don't. I think that just makes all the difference when you've got a good manager like Brett. And they certainly never GW never has a lack of people wanting to work for them. So you got to think they can find some really good hot dog people who can really make a success of it, as Brett has. So, yeah, I think they do it much better now. Oh, I lost some of my shadow. But, though the Woodland Browns should be exactly the same, that's the point, Coovs. That's why we didn't change the name. Whenever you see a non-name change, there should be no shift. Essentially, the HD item number 298, the 298 item number was canceled. And then the new item number is going to be its item number from here on out because we brought it back for bones. And if you see that old number there was some crossover while we shifted those SKUs. But in general, if you see that old item number, it's probably an older bottle of paint at this point. I'm just using my black to kind of touch up that edge and make it nice and sharp. So this is the point where I might take in some yellow Yeah, yeah, Mathophile, I feel you on the you know, I have a lot of friends who've been in that situation, like working a job that they really don't enjoy, and that, or that's, you know, very stressful or bad for their health, but they feel like they have to keep it because of money. And I mean, it really depends at that point. Kind of assess what your goals are in life, right? And could you get a job that you like more, making maybe not quite as much, but maybe you could find something making as much, you know? It's all, you know, what risks you're willing to take, and in the name of being like happier with what you do. Um, and you know, sometimes that means a career shift, or it might just not be doable for you. But I think it's very important to be happy at your job, whether it's because you work with cool people or because you really love what you do. I think that a lot of times, if we don't work somewhere that we do love, we're wasting our potential a bit as people. Oh, ethics are hard. Yeah, ethics questioning is depressing. Hey, World will explode. Yeah, I mean, there's more, but I don't want to go into some of it. World will explode. Roll one. If you ever get me at a con, you know, I'd give it. I don't drink anymore, really, but maybe you get me a tiny glass of wine. Ask me to talk about my GW gaze. I have stories. I have stories. But but yeah, in general, I like I said, I'm actually very happy with how the company, because I like to see like places, I like to see things doing well, right? I like to see the hobby doing well, and GW is still a huge entry level funnel into the miniature hobby, and so I like the fact that they've made changes, that they've improved as a company, that they've become a better place to work, that they're trying to like make, you know, make it a little easier for consumers, that they're really interested in building a better game. You know, they're taking a lot of right steps, right? So however they were in the past, they are, you know, they've improved a lot. And I always believe that people can change. I mean, people and companies can change. They can reinvent themselves. They can get some more self-awareness, and really, that's why I try never to write anybody off. Like, even people who I've really had problems with in the past, I am willing to change my opinion about them if they change. Because I know I've changed a lot over the years, right? So I do believe that people can change. I mean, maybe the core personality is still there. There are parts of Anne that will always be parts of Anne. I'm just doing some fine dots here and there with a more of a yellow green, guys, just to tighten this up a little bit. Um, yeah, seek me out at a ReaperCon one evening and ask me about GW. Yeah, and I'll tell you. There we go. Just little bits of yellow here and there, usually around the shadows or near the top, just to suggest more texture that's a little bit tighter, that's not so scratchy. You'd lose a little bit of the scratch if you've gotten any scratchiness from your side brushing, or if you accidentally dry brushed a little bit, which, you know, when your brush gets drier, you get that texture. So this lets you kind of put more precise highlights down just real quick. It lightens up everything like you see, you know, and then if I think I've lost some of my deeper greens, what I'm going to do is glaze with that troll flesh or troll hide. But first I'm going to bring up my highlights quite a bit. In the bad old days, right? Right? Telling the kidlets all the stories of GW in the bad old days. But yeah, so actually to go back on topic, I guess it's always nice to have a part-time job when you're freelancing, because much as Patreon is a game changer because it gives you that steady paycheck, having a week-to-week paycheck or a bi-weekly small paycheck is also a nice stress reducer. It makes it so that You know that you always have money coming in, because that's a problem with freelancing, right? It's feast or famine. Some days, some months you'll have a bunch of work, or a bunch of new subs on your Twitch, or a bunch of new patrons, and then the next month might not be as good. So, I mean, obviously you can only do so much. You can do your best to try to grow all those things, but you'll have months that are a little lower. It's a natural thing.
Hey, Miss Ann.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hop up a channel and discuss something briefly with John and Collins about ReaperCon.
Okay, sounds good.
Text me if there's any dog emergencies or anything crazy.
Yeah, she's asleep right now, so hopefully she'll be good for another half hour, but yeah.
And chat, please behave.
Right? Chat's being good.
You too, Ann. You too, Ann.
Oh, we're being naughty the minute you leave.
Oh, man.
Whip out the spiked root beer, everybody. It's after lunch. It's after beer or root beer o'clock somewhere, right? Hee hee. But yeah, so I mean, I always when I freelanced before, I had the part-time job, and then now Reaper is my part-time job now. And it just helps. It helps to have that additional extra cushion. You know that if everything went south tomorrow, you'd at least have a little money coming in while you looked for something else. And just having that in place, even though I don't intend to stop freelancing, it's really now I'm throwing my entire self into making a success of this. But you like to have that little cushion. And like I said, that money from your part-time job isn't subject to the self-employment tax, so it lets you make a little money that kind of lowers your overall tax profile, right? So if you look at the entirety of the money that you've paid, then you can kind of offset the loss. Justin's gone, party time. Yeah, Planer does have her spoon. Alrighty, so now I've bleached it out a little bit. I've gotten a little bit yellow. So I really miss my my rich olivey tone that I started with. So I'm going to build a wash out of my troll hide. So let's do it by formula and see how it does. I'm thinking about glazing. I'm like debating whether I want to wash or glaze, but I think I want to wash. So... Oh yeah, Coobs. Well, and like I was telling everybody, I actually am really enjoying Twitch streaming on my own channel, and it seems to be doing quite well thanks to the generosity of all you guys. And there were a lot of my income this last month was gifted subs, and it's totally all you guys. But hopefully, as we slowly develop our stream, we will get more and more real subs. There, we're gonna do a couple drops of paint, and we'll do some brush on sealer. The brush on sealer makes it translucent. There I am. Shake well. Shake well. Yeah. Yeah, I totally enjoy my Twitch. And my Twitch is doing well, like, relatively speaking. I have far surpassed my initial Twitch goal for the first month. Like, far surpassed. Like, way above. Like, I showed David my dashboard yesterday, and he's like, whoa! So... given my initial estimate was like $20. So estimate low, and then when you blow the ceiling off of it, you can be happy. So we've got 2 drops of paint, so we're going to have 4 drops of sealer. 8 drops of sealer. 4 times 2. There. And what the sealer does is it keeps the paint in solution, even if we throw a lot of water into it. And then we're going to get... This is way too much wash. I just need 4 drops of water. There we go. That little capillary action that you see there, by the way, is the flow improver in the paint interacting with the addition of the water. And then we mix it up. And that's my usual wash formula. Now, some paints are a little more transparent, and they need a bit more paint added to them to get a good result. Some are going to be a little bit heavier and are still going to look really dark. So you kind of want to glance at it, look at it, judge whether you like it. This is going a little lighter than I initially thought it was going to go, but we're going to see how it works. So when you do a wash, you want to put a ton of it on your brush, because the point is that you do want it to go into the cracks and crevices. So we will paint it, and you just want to paint it over, and you really want to glob it on. You don't want to... So some people I see, like, they just get a little wash on their brush, and they very carefully stroke it over the surface. But really, you want it to pool. You want to put it on with a heavy hand. And if you see it getting somewhere you don't want it, like creeping up the dress there, then you can grab your brush and dry it off a bit and come in and slurp it out of that area. But having a little bit of a greenish tinge there probably isn't bad either, because the dress is somewhat shiny, so there's probably light reflecting back up on her dress. So I don't have to worry if it gets a little bit of a green tint. But you want this to pool. You want it to go into the cracks, and you want it to make... See, we've gotten already a much more vibrant green out of that. You go back here, it looks kind of pasty. You go up here, you can see the yellow. And that's the beauty, guys, of translucent colors, translucent dark colors like Trollhide, is they're so pigmented, and they've got so much, like, just richness to them, that when you get a little bit too chalky or pasty, you can glaze over with this sort of thing, and it really brings life back. That's not enough on my brush. I need a lot. A lot. So yeah, do not take your ladylike little brush and fill it with just a little bit of paint, and do gentle strokes over the surface of the mini. Glob it on. And then if it goes somewhere you don't want it, rinse out your brush, maybe dry it off a little bit on a paper towel, and just wick away any excess that's going somewhere you don't want it to be. And then let it dry and assess what you've done. I do think I am going to make the leaves a little bit of a different color, though. I think I do want the leaves to be a little lighter and brighter. I think I'm going to end up using more Naga, a little bit more Naga in these. I might take just like a brush full of some of these colors that I've mixed and transfer it to a new well and drop another drop of Naga in to really shift it. They should still be close enough to go along. What was that? Oh, I'll go and re-highlight this, Wolfgang, most likely. Depending on how strong the wash is. Like I said, this is the first wash I've done probably for months. I do not actually do washes. For me, they are not a useful thing most of the time. But for here, I wanted a glaze, and I also wanted to get that dark color back into some of these pits and crevices. So for this, a wash works for me. But in general, I don't do washes. So glazes are often the second to last step. But even when I do a glaze, like if I just wanted to glaze this and get that color back, that richness back, I'd still go back and re-highlight my last highlight. Because whenever you put a layer of shading or color over an area that you've already done, you're going to lose your highest highlight unless that color is like you're glazing with white. So you need to go back and hit that highest highlight one more time after you do this sort of thing. So it's never the last step. And the sealer is fine. I mean, you can put multiple layers of sealer over the model. The great thing about doing washes with our sealer is that you're also sealing the model. So you're putting a little bit more durability on it, which is great. Hey, Wash, don't be a creep. Thanks, Iffy. Yeah, I don't know. These leaves, they don't have a lot of room for variegated texture. I was looking at them earlier, wondering if I could do a variegation. I might be able to do it. I do like putting patterns on the leaves. A wash you're putting on, it's darker, and you want it to pool. You want it to shade. You're using it as a shading device. You can also use it to shift color, as I have here. But in general, I wanted to get a darker color in these little cracks and crevices. I'd lost some of it. That's what you do a wash for. You do a glaze to shift color or to hide brush strokes. Washes can also shift colors and hide brush strokes, but they're a bit heavier. Glazes are very lightweight. They're like colored water. You tend to do more than one layer to get it to where you want it. Yeah, you can paint on top of a sealer, sure. With our brush on sealer, absolutely. And the Vallejo one, you can too, Wolfgang. You probably want to seal it then at the end, but, I mean, a lot of people would do that anyway. But I've had no problems painting on top of our brush on sealer. I mean, sealers are just like paint bases without pigment in them. When you think of it that way, you can see how you can do that. Now, there are some paints that don't have great adhesion, that may have trouble going on over a sealer. They'll go on over a sealer, but they may rub off more easily. So things like Vallejo Model Color, because especially if you're working with it thinned, if you put it down over a sealer, you might find that it rubs off really easily. So what you want to do then, if you're working with paint like Vallejo Model Color, is you want to seal over the top of it again, and then you'll be fine. That's what I used to do. When I worked with Vallejo, I would like do 2 highlights and put a sealer over. 2 highlights, put a sealer over. I ended up having like this, immense amount of layers of sealer. I think my Golden Demon Winner has like 18 layers of dull coat, guys. And brush on sealer would be the same. Well, here you go, math file. Like with a wash. See how dark that is? If I was glazing with this color, I would be there. So you see it? What happens with the glaze is that as you add water, you can see how it gets paler, right? With a wash, you're looking for it to still have the strong dark color at the center. And the minute you see it go paler, you know that you're breaking the paint a bit, that you're really thinning out the pigment, that you're losing that pigmentation. With a wash, you want that pigmentation. With a glaze, you just want a thin layer to kind of glaze a color a little bit differently. Oh, it's my old guy. It's an old and paint job. Kiri is up against... I cannot get it out right now. Kiri is sleeping with her back up against the cabinet again. That's the problem with having the dog blanket, like, right in front of that cabinet, is inevitably Kiri is blocking access. That's why I have Mr. Grumpy sitting on top of my shelf here instead of in the cabinet where he belongs. But yeah, it's my old... it's Alpha Legion Chaos General. 2002 Silver Golden Demon winner at Baltimore. The big one. Before they made a whole bunch of demons across the US and you had to go one place and compete against all the best people. Yeah, so Kiri is barring us from the Golden Demon winner. Maybe I'll remember to grab him out at some point. Yeah, I mean, the thing with varnishes and sealers is just go for a matte one. Make sure that it's matte. You don't want a brush-on sealer. I mean, ours is technically a bit satiny if you don't shake it well and if you don't thin it. I like being able to have that degree of finish depending on how I use it. When you thin it, it goes matte though. So like you can see that this is dried perfectly matte. So when I used it in this wash. So you just want it to be matte. Don't use a glossy thing. I mean, you shouldn't have to use a gloss sealer unless you're trying to protect a gaming model and then you're going to want to spray over it with a matte sealer. Yeah, Crawley Hunter. If you, you can always thin it. If you don't thin the MSP brush-on sealer, it will be kind of a satiny or eggshelly kind of finish, which means it'll have a little bit of a gleam to it. If you do thin it, it will go matte. So typically what I do is thin it very little. So I'll thin it, like I'll do 5-to-1 sealer to water. And that will do well. Yeah, there's a Golden Demon winner website. Yep. Declarement. I am on there, although they have me as Canadian instead of USA because the second Golden Demon I won was in Canada and apparently they got confused. Yeah. So there you go, Dogfather. We probably passed each other. Oh, it should come off. A brush-on sealer should come off just fine. It's when you're using the aerosols with the gloss roll one. Then those have a harder finish. But ours are, ours are high acrylic. You may have to scrub a bit, but I would think they'd be just fine to strip. Yeah, it definitely helps using that sealer to stop your washes from breaking. I never make a wash without sealer now. Not ever. It also adds transparency to your washes. It makes them behave a lot better. There we go. We need an episode on competitions. Except we don't have any right now. Like with Nebula, when things open up again and I start working on my Golden Demon winner, that's my optimism. I start working on my next Golden Demon project, and something for, overseas. We want to go to Monte San Savino, MSS as they call it, over in Italy, Italy, I think. But it's supposed to be the show if you want to like compete against all the top people these days. And so Dave and I would love to go. And apparently it is on this year, but we're just a little bit nervous about flying overseas and going overseas. So we're going to hold off on this year. But yeah, so now I'm going to re-highlight gonna grab I kind of made a chartreuse color. Actually, you know what this is? This is old. This is equivalent to Pro Paint mold. Remember the old Pro Paint mold color? And I used to look at that color and go, why the heck would I ever want to use that color? It's a sickly, off yellow, greenish thing that wanted to be chartreuse but didn't get all the way there. But here it is, and I'm using it to highlight olive greens. So I thinned it down a bit. I want it to come off my brush in little specks. But yeah, I mean, competition, we totally can talk about competition models. Maybe I'll do that on my stream. Because then I can show you guys, you know, like my bust that I'm going to be working up and my Golden Demon project. I'm actually thinking about starting my Golden Demon project on my own stream because, you know, we get a slightly different audience when we do Games Workshop stuff or, you know, as opposed to Busts or Reaper. So I'd like to diversify my viewer base because you guys are awesome, but we could be even more awesome. We'll get those GW people into Reaper. We will. Evil laugh. Evil laugh. Wahahaha. But yeah, so just putting little dots now to just bring the highlight back in, but I don't want to cover up all of my nice olive that I brought back in. I'm going to highlight a little bit. I'm going to leave this mostly in shadow under this bag because it would be... I could introduce a deeper shadow under the bag here as well. Yeah, I really can't wait to start getting back to competitions too. It was kind of sad because I got back into competition painting when I was talking with David at first, and he got me excited about it again, which I hadn't been for years. And now, of course, there's no competition, so it's like I got all excited, and now I can't do it. But yeah, so we'd like to travel overseas for some of those shows. We're really hoping they reschedule the World Expo for next year instead of waiting another 3 years for the Netherlands one. So doing a little bit of stippling here suggests like kind of micro plant growth and a softer texture to this area. If you do hard edged highlighting on this sort of thing, it will look like more hard, but if you diffuse it a bit more, it will look like a softer area. So we want it to look soft and spongy. Soft and spongy. So there we go. So I came back and I just put the highlights mostly on the top. And that's pretty nice. That's cool. So let's mix up some greens. Yeah, get those GW subs. That's right. Grab those people, right, Shadow Raven? I think there's a Warhammer channel on Twitch. I don't know. I have to look up my Twitch channels. Oh, good. Excellent. I'm glad that I gave you a starting point, Cubes. Honestly, the blue-black armor works so well on Fire Giants, I would never do anything else. Like, you get that complementary color scheme going, and it looks so good, and you get the dark versus light thing of the fire versus the really dark armor. I just think it looks fantastic. I'd never go any other way. Well, Dogfather, you know, I improved by little steps at one point in my career, and it is perfectly possible if you put in only 20 minutes a day to get to a good competition level. If you have an hour a day, it's even faster. Uh-oh, Kiri is waking up. We could have an end to the stream early. I'm gonna see. There is a Warhammer channel? Good. Well, start with ReaperCon, Dogfather. See where ReaperCon places you. And then just start what your best thing you can do if you do want to get better, but you think that there's no way you can have enough time to become really good. The best thing you can do is to go to ReaperCon, get placed, and talk to the judges and say, what is my next step to get better? What's the next thing I should work on? And then you just spend, like, the next year working on that one or two things that they give you. And then by the next year, maybe you're good enough to win the next level of medal. The one that really takes a lot of time and effort is gold. And that's the way it should be. Like, gold, you have to almost pull off a flawless model. But in trying to get from certificate to bronze to silver, you can learn a lot and really improve a lot and not have to put a lot of time into it. You just need to have those couple of things that you need to improve. Yeah, that'll be interesting. You could do that math file. It'd be counterintuitive, but you could totally pull it off. Yeah, she settled down again. Twisted on my good. Yeah, well, remember, magma may not produce a significant glow. If it's just tiny cracks, it probably isn't. Yeah, been on the edge of gold for a while. It is a big jump. And what it takes there would be like, what do I need to fine tune? That would be the question that you should ask the judges then, is what do I need to fine tune? What do I need to get gold? What is the thing? It may be your blending, it may be your color composition, it may be, maybe just like overall like presentation. It could be, who knows, right? Like silver to gold is a big jump because there's a lot of things then that you're really like focusing, like it's hyper focusing in on. To really refine the tools. Because silver, if you hit silver, you're at a solid level, solid intermediate to advanced level. Then it's just getting up there, really pushing yourself. And that can be some of the most fun because then you're trying like awesome stuff like NMM and OSL and, trying to get your layers doing smooth blending or doing textures. There's so much fun stuff. You're at the level of fun stuff when you're at silver to gold. If you think of it that way, because my friend Brian Pearsall, who also teaches at ReaperCon, for the longest time was stuck at silver. And then he got gold one year and then he dropped back down to silver and he was just like, argh! But I think it's like, you can't let it frustrate you. You have to isolate the things you did well on that gold model and like, then fix the things that maybe you didn't do quite as well. Like, and just kind of look at it as a broad picture and look at it as an opportunity to have some fun and try some stuff. Like that attitude is so, keeping that open-minded attitude and that this is fun attitude and not get stressed out about it. I don't know, Mathfile, I'm suspecting that you're a pretty solid, like, intermediate level at this point. The thing is, I haven't seen your stuff in person, and that makes a big difference. Photographs never tell the whole story. I can't see how smooth your blends are or anything on a lot of the pictures. I would need to get really close. But you're highlighting and shading, and you're trying to blend, and you're trying OSL. So to me, that says you're a solid intermediate level, and if you pushed yourself, you could probably be a solid silver. But that's, in my personal grading. The teams, we try to make the teams very consistent, but inevitably, everybody's got kind of a different shelf in their head for stuff. Yeah, so you are probably at a low silver, but you are still highlighting, you are still blending, and you are still trying lighting effects. So, for me, a solid silver is starting to get decent blending, maybe isn't doing a lot of lighting, but is doing some decent blending work, good color composition, good attention to detail. Attention to detail is a thing. If you look, I think we used to have the guidelines and what each category is graded on for ReaperCon MSP Open. And there's a breakdown of what exactly we're looking for each category. Like diorama, there's a lot more emphasis on the story you're telling, a lot less emphasis on the technical part of the thing, although the technical always weighs in. But there also is a big chunk on story. So you can even grade slightly higher, in diorama if you have a really good story that you convey really well. Things like that. So there's a bunch of stuff that goes into it. But if it were me judging your current work at Mathophile, I'd probably put you at a high bronze, low silver. And if you worked on your blending and continued your work on lighting, you could be a very solid silver. To go gold is very difficult, but definitely doable. It's just at that point it really is like picking a really good model, a high quality model, and going to town on it. See, now that means you're a high silver, Dogfather. If you're at that level, then it's like are you in my coaching? If you're not in my coaching, next time a coaching thing pops open, you should like grab it for a couple months. Send me pictures of all your competition entries, and then we'll break down what you need to do to get to gold. A lot of it can be model choice as well. I'll tell you that. A lot of people handicap themselves by choosing not a great model. Oh, there we go. ReaperCon MSP open breakdowns are in the ReaperCon forum on the Reaper Miniatures forums. Great. Level placement. Assess. Tell you what I'd grade you on the MSP open. I'm a nice judge. I should warn you. Although I definitely like that you can break it out by 3 levels within each thing. So when I say a high silver, it means that you're getting like 2s and 3s, or sorry, 3s and 4s. 2 3s, 2 3s and a 4. Yeah. Or 2 levels within each category, I guess. High silver, low silver, blah, blah, blah. Oh no, it is 3. That's right. Never actually entered a contest. You should try it, Chibi. I mean, it's fun. Go into it with a this will be fun. Just let's see how I do. Go into it with that attitude. But yeah, Dogfather, it would be kind of fun. I should actually include that in my little email coaching tier, that if you want to, send me your past ReaperCon entries and you're trying to break into your next level, I will give you a thorough assessment of what you need to do to get to that next level. What helps, though, is if while you're at ReaperCon, you look at the models that scored gold and you kind of ask yourself, what will it take for me to get to this level? Oh, let's see here. Oh yeah, the competition this year is much different from MSP Open. MSP Open is taken very seriously, and it's impossible to run an online competition, in a fair and reputable way unless you're like Crystal Brush, and even Crystal Brush required having judges on hand to actually look at the models, because it's just too easy. The lighting of your photo or color adjustment, it's just too easy to make a model look better than it is Mathophile, or worse than it is. Photographs are just not where it's at. So Ed decided, probably a good decision, to do a more of a scaled down painting competition this year that was more fun. So yeah, regular MSP Open not happening next year. But yeah, I love my painting competition. It's mine and Ed's painting competition. Ed put a lot of his own oomph in that painting competition. I was surprised and happy about it, like, because up until that point it had kind of been like kind of mostly me, and I wanted to go to Open System, and Ed really made it a time investment. I mean, we drove up to the Tulsa show so that we could see the Open System in action and talk to the people who were running it, and we got permission from Shepard Payne to use the Open System for ReaperCon, and to adapt it for our uses, and so while Shep was still alive, so Ed really put a lot into the format, a lot of thought into the format of the MSP Open. He put a lot of work into it. Yeah, Instagram's a weirdo thing. Like, I put some time into it, and I'm not convinced that it really... I don't know how much exposure it gets you, because unless you're doing niche stuff where you can tag a channel that's smaller so that it's... people will see your stuff, because in some of those big places, the minute you put up a picture, your picture gets shoved out by the next picture, I don't know. Instagram is kind of cool for getting your name out there, I think, just a bit, but I don't think it's as effective as other ways. Maybe that's just me. I fell out of using... I used my Instagram pretty religiously for like a month, where I was trying to post every day. And then I went to like every few days, and then I just didn't do it for a while, and just recently went back. But I'm not convinced that it really translates. Oh, nice, Dogfather. Yeah, so you're probably pretty high level. Like, you probably just need a little bit of refinement. Yeah, some people coming from other competitions are like, don't you have award glut? In other words, we're giving away too much awards, but I don't think that that's a thing. I mean, it might be a thing when we get to 2,000 entries, but if we get to 2,000 entries, I'm just going to jump for joy. It may get to the point, I could see it getting to the point where we put up, like, first certificates, or if we got, like, 2,000 entries, we'd probably have to put up, like, a list of the names up on the monitors. Like, not have me, maybe just have me read out the certificates and then have people come up after the award ceremony to get their certificate. Like, because it would take so long, the award ceremony would be so long if everybody came up like they do now to get their certificate. So we might need to, like, kind of compress it a little bit if we get a ton of entries, if ReaperCon continues to grow. We had over 1,000 last year, and it was, I mean, I booked it. You guys who were there know that I booked it through that award ceremony. I don't think I've ever read names and gotten it shuffled that fast. But it worked, but if we got much bigger, we just wouldn't be able to do it in under an hour and a half. And that's just too long to ask people to sit in chairs and clap their hands. So we would have to start kind of like doing that, but I wouldn't ever want us to scale down the awards. Like, I feel like everybody who deserves an award, and that's the hallmark of the MSP Open. And I would not want to change that. I'm going to put a drop of, Naga into my mixture of Troll and, NMM Gold highlight and see if I can shift it a little bit more green to do a base on these leaves. Or maybe I'll use my Ancient Oak. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that. Start cold, go warm. Let's try that. Let me see here. Proctor almost had a heart attack. I know you have to ask him on Crow's Nest if he saw almost had a heart attack. I do know that I remember at least. Just use IG. Cadedos. There we go. There we go. I'm just going to put some ancient oak on these and see if I like it a little better up here than I did on the ground. I would like the plants to be a little bit of a different color. Boop. Boop. So it's a bit thin. You can see the paint is a bit thin because you can see that it's, you know, kind of making a heavy wash right now. I don't mind that. Looks like we got some berries in there. I'm gonna have to paint those bright. There we go. But yeah, I do remember like Ed and Ron freaking out kind of about the number of awards and me looking at them and saying, don't worry, it'll be fine. And then I just booked it. I just booked it as fast as I could. Because usually I do take more pauses, you know. I knew I could speed it up just a bit. It does make it kind of an explosion at that point to keep up with, but there we go. So we got some nice dark green leaves. But I think that the leaf up here has to be different. We need to paint this one interesting, guys. Because she is, like, looking at it like, what the heck is this? So I think I might need to paint it. Let's paint it a light green and put some purple stripes on it or something. Yeah, I do too. I wanted a different green. So a bunch of different greens on here. So let's do a lighter, brighter green. Put some of this in here. At this point, I'm just mixing everything off of my initial Troll Flesh and NMM Gold highlight mixes. This will make the greens go together a little bit better because there's always a little bit of one green in the next green. Hypothetically. This is a very bright green though. But that's good because this is, the other thing to remember is this is a very small leaf. So if we want it to show up on this model, we need to make it a brighter green. So I'm mixing quite a bit of mostly Naga with just a touch of the Troll Hide. That's a very bright green. But it's going to show up. Yeah, it's going to show up. So good. And I could go a little more saturated here, even though a lot of the rest of the model is desaturated, because this is an accent color, right? It appears one place on this whole model. The only other place this green might appear is if I use it a little bit to highlight some of these dark leaves. But I think I want it to be more or less unique. And you can pull that. If it's a lighter, brighter color and it's near the face of the model, like this is, it's also kind of the focal point, right? It's the thing that she's looking at. So you can get away with going brighter and more saturated here than you went elsewhere. Because it's an important feature, so it's okay to draw the eye to it. Yeah, that's cool that you did Inktober. I've always been tempted to, Pendrick, but I've always been busy. I do love to draw. Yeah, yellow, green with red, purple. That's what I was thinking in our... I could even use some of the runic purple, maybe with a little bit more magenta in it. First, I have to wait for it to dry. But yeah, so I'm liking how this is coming out. And then the magenta, purpley thing that I do up here, I can repeat on the flower down here. So I can still kind of pull it all in. And if I use a magenta-y purple, I can also highlight this this purple holder, plant holder with it. Yes. Yeah, she's great for a diorama, right? She's coming along really well. I'm very pleased with her. All right, I guess it's almost time. We started just a little late, but we're gone a little late. We did not have a Kiri emergency. Good girl. Good girl, Kiri. Kiri's going to be so happy. Like, I'm going to buy her some fancy stuff because I said my first Twitch check was going to go to Kiri. Well, it's a pretty, it's like over $100 worth of Twitch checks. So it's going to be a lot of treats and maybe some special food. And maybe we'll get her some of those awesome, oh, who does it? It's a Wisconsin company, but they do the freeze-dried raw patties. And those, she loves those when I rehydrate them with a bit of hot water. Maybe I'll get her some of that. So yeah, and I found out when Twitch pays you, Justin.
Oh, is it the 15th of every month?
Yes, it's a net 15 after the end of the month. So
That makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't make anything. I only made a little bit in July because that was some of my first streams, and then I made enough this month to go over the $100. So I will get paid in September 15th, and then we'll go Kiri shopping, guys. We'll go shopping for Kiri. We'll find all sorts of treats and tasty food. Yeah, Stella and Chewy. That's it, Dogfather. Yeah, she loves those, like the duck, because duck is. We had duck last night. We did cast iron duck breasts in the cast iron skillet with duck risotto that we had left over from our previous duck that we'd frozen. But Kiri got duck last night, so she's super. Oh my god, her eyes get so big. Like whenever you have a really good piece of food, her eyes just get super big. It's so funny. She opens them up really wide. Cat treats hidden away. Good. Oh, Michael's on today. Yeah, let's do the Michael Mordor raid that we wanted to do yesterday and couldn't do. Justin, does that work for you?
That works for me.
Super awesome. Yeah, guys. So we'll come back to Juliana. Maybe we'll come back to her on Monday. Remember, we don't have any streams tomorrow on this channel because Justin is super excitedly going to be moving all the stuff over to the new studio. But I will be on tomorrow morning on my channel, twitch.tv/paintingbig, and I'll do a show on there. We'll probably do one of my own projects on there. So, yes, I will see you all hopefully still tomorrow morning on my personal Twitch channel. Because remember, we have to get up above that 75 viewers concurrent. We've got to keep 75 viewer average. So I'm hoping to boost my viewerage tomorrow. So, yeah, twitch.tv/paintingbig at the usual time, 11:30 a.m. Central. And I will be there. And I hope you all will be there too. Okie dokie. We'll see you later, guys. Have a fantastic Friday. Or have the rest of a fantastic Thursday. And I will see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you guys very much for coming out. We appreciate it as always. We will see you later today for Painting Platinum and then Reaper Live. So thanks, guys. Keep being awesome, remember. And tell Michael we said hi. He had 13.